Hi guys, welcome back to the Improvement Season podcast. It is me, Steve Hall, and on the other end, Pascal Floor. How are things with you,
Hello.
Pascal? How are you feeling? How's the weather there in
It's lovely.
Berlin?
A cold wind, but it's lovely outside. It's finally kind of the time where you are starting to enjoy going out on walks with your dog. So when we got Kayo, it was awful. The other guys went to the skiing trip or snowboarding holiday, and I stayed at home, and it was the worst weather to get a puppy because it was just pouring the entire time. It was cold, it was sometimes snowing, and it was just muddy, and it was disgusting. And now finally the weather is actually getting nice to then go out on regular walks. And I can definitely tell that your step count is increasing big time if you're not careful about this. Because my step count has probably increased by at least 1/3 by then.
Yeah, I think there's actually some research on like people who own dogs are generally healthier and like lower cardiovascular disease and stuff. And I reckon a large part of that is literally just a better step count.
Yeah.
Like because you have to take them out on walks, otherwise you're a bad dog parent.
Yeah, and especially because right now we are trying to teach him to then poop and pee outside on walks. Because with puppies, sometimes it's so urgent that they are still peeing into either the living room or into the apartment or into the house, and sometimes we just left into the garden. But right now, he's now at an age where we want him to learn to only pee and poop outside when we are on a walk, and that's why every single time he tells us that he needs to go, we need to actually then get dressed and get out. And I say we, but most of the time it's me.
Yeah.
So,
Ada doesn't really, I think once you're in a good routine with them, they just know when they're going to be out and able to go and do those things. Because she never is like, I'm desperate, I need to go. It's very rare that she's like ever making signs that she really needs to go out. Sometimes it happens and you're just like, I'm almost confused. I'm like, why are you being annoying? And then I'm like, oh, you really needed a wee. That's what it was.
You did get Ada when she was already kind of 1 year old, wasn't she?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is already the time where they have it most of the time under control. This is also the time where they are adults. So beyond kind of the teenage years, the puberty, most of the time, maybe they are in the last bits of puberty, but then they have it most of the time under control. Kayo is right now just entering puberty, which you can also see because he has a boner like nearly all of the time. And he just stares at you with those kind of empty eyes, you know? A dog just stares at you without wanting anything. And then you just take a closer look downwards and there's this massive red rocket. Everyone who has watched kind of South Park, the first season back in the days, knows what I'm talking about.
I can't remember actually Red Rocket, but I mean, I know exactly what you mean in regards to animals and their genitalia. I actually wonder that sometimes. I think having a female dog is a little bit easier with that, assuming if you have them spayed, because if you don't have them spayed, then I imagine that's probably a lot more hard, like a lot harder, because you have to, I don't know, deal with the whole menstrual cycle.
Funny thing is, now he's getting at that age where his ball sack is actually becoming bigger, and it's still kind of cute. You know, it's kind of it's kind of pinkish, still harder. You know, where it's kind of like, if he's walking around, then it's just like tingling a little bit instead of kind of those very deep hanging balls that, do you know that those kind of the type of sheep who have those massive balls?
No.
There's a specific, I think it's even a Welsh sheep or something like this. Massive balls, like humongous balls. Something like this is not the case with Kayu at the moment. He's just getting into the puberty and his balls are still kind of cute to look at. It's just like he was walking around and they are just like tingling the entire time.
But I can't even, I don't know, like when Ada's sat on my lap like this, it's just like, I don't know, it's just like she's almost like just a soft toy. But I don't know if Kyle was sat on your lap now, although he's much larger.
He's
like
already big, eh?
He'd have his bits and pieces all over you and it'd be a bit different. I don't know.
The hair, I mean, we have a Labrador at home, and the hair is awful, Steve. It's crazy how much hair they are actually leaving in the entire apartment and room. And this is definitely not for me, because I'm someone who needs to have a clean space at home. I'm very much kind of adamant about it, and I'm getting crazy when it's kind of not cleaned at home. And with the hair lying around, this is simply the contrary to how I normally like to live, but it's just what it is. And especially in the transition time, so spring and fall time, they are always changing their fur, and it's crazy.
Yeah, molting, is that what it's called? Yeah, molting.
Yeah,
I think that's
molting.
what it's called. But we're lucky with Ada because she doesn't really do that, and she's quite a clean dog. Like, she doesn't dribble very much, unless like she does that whole like sitting there staring at you and you're eating, and she slowly just dribbles accumulating in her mouth, and it comes out and you're like, oh, come on.
The question
Lick
is
your
then,
lips.
like, afterwards, you're just, in hindsight, you're thinking, why did I get a Labrador after all? They are cute, but they are just hungry all of the time. They are naively trustworthy, where it's like, if someone comes into your apartment or kind of tries to rob you, they will let them in, and they will be like, hello, yeah, take the television.
Take
of course, we wanted to actually get rid of it anyway, so take it. Right, these time, and he's smelling and all that kind of stuff. So after all, you're thinking like, why did I get a dog like this?
But not many people at least get dog for security, I hope.
No,
That's a bit like, I don't know. I get scared talking about like big bulls. Like when I see like just your stereotypical aggressive dog out there, like the pit bull terriers, and then they come like running over to Ada and they have these massive fucking balls between their legs. I'm like, holy shit, what's this guy going to do? Because he fucking could kill me, like let alone Ada.
Yeah. Getting back to kind of fitness. Joe Jeffrey, he has a dog as well, and I know that he's always doing dog training with him, and he is like one of those type of dogs, like very rough training, like police dog training style.
Yeah.
And these are the dogs that you're talking about, right? Like very aggressive if they want to.
Yeah. You just have to, I think he actually trains dogs as well, so like he knows what he's doing. Yeah, I think he's also a bit of a dog trainer himself, so. And I think he fosters dogs and everything. So he's really deep into dogs.
I mean, of course, it makes sense if you have to deal with lots of anabolic steroid people. Well, it also makes sense then to train aggressive dogs. It's kind of the same ballpark, isn't it?
It would be kind of, I guess it's similar to like, people go into like a shark crate into the sea and like to see sharks. And like they're biting at this cage or whatever. I guess it's similar to that, like adrenaline rush when this dog like comes running at you and bites this like sleeve that you've got on. I'd be like, holy shit! Like if that sleeve wasn't on you, if it bit somewhere else, wow. But dogs are, I mean, a lot of dogs. If you train them well, it's like kids, isn't it? Like generally, well-behaved kids are due to like good parenting. Not well-behaved kids are generally like parenting, I think. Yeah. Same with dogs, often the ones that are like wild and ruly. And if you have a dog like that that's aggressive, like you need to train them well and have control of them. The other day, I was literally walking along and this guy just let his dog off the leash. It was like running across the road, like this main road. It was just like came over to Ada, just like stiffed her, and she just like laid on her back and was like, no, don't hurt me. And then it just ran off, and this guy just had no control over him. It's because that dog's going to get hit by a car, or it's going to, I don't know, it could be aggressive. You don't know what's going to happen.
I have the same thing here in where I live as well. Thing is, though, that it's kind of like living on the countryside. There are no cars around. And also, most of the time, it's kind of older women. And they are always like screaming from far beyond, like, it's all right, without even asking me whether it's all right. It's just like, it's all right if it's all right for you. Yeah, of course. But I'm trying to train my dog here. So, yeah. Anyway.
Good dog chat.
Yeah.
But he's sleeping. It's not impacting your sleep now, is it?
How
else is it impacting your bodybuilding? You mentioned steps.
Funny enough, funny that you were asking, because it does impact my sleep. We took Caillou with us into our kind of sleeping room or bedroom, simply because he was always yowling when he was downstairs by himself. And we thought like, okay, let's give it a try, right? So we have this kind of small area just for him. it's kind of like a cave, a cage. But the thing is, it's kind of the old bed of Tony. So it's more like a bed for smaller kids, you know? That's why it's a cage. And he's sleeping there and he's snoring so much, and it's right beside my bed. And I'm someone also there. I'm very much insensitive when I'm asleep. That's why I'm also sleeping with earplugs, eye mask, and all that kind of stuff. And it does impact me because sometimes when he's snoring, I wake up in the middle of the night.
That's quite funny.
When it then comes to step counts, I've just realized that I'm actually getting more steps in, which is not necessarily a bad thing after all, right? It allows you to eat a little bit more than I still have to now get used to it, though, to up my calories and adjust to that new environment, because normally I've told you about this, Steve, several times, that I knew what my day looks like normally. And because of that, I was always able to tell how many steps I'm getting in. Right now, because I'm going out on way more walks, I'm not entirely certain about this anymore, and that's why I probably have to track at some point just to get a general idea again, because I think it's much higher than I think it is. I'm probably getting in, as I already said earlier, 1/3 more step counts, which is quite a lot, because I was already at around 10 to 12,000 steps on a daily basis. Right now, I would assume that I'm getting in around 15, 17,000 steps on a daily basis. And because of that, I think that I need to make some modifications to my diet soon as well, in order to then see that the scale weight is moving upwards.
Yeah, I think once you've locked into a routine, you're fine, because that's what it was like. We talked about me moving from Fitbit to Withings, and this Withings watch was giving me 20% less steps reported. But I'm like, I know I'm not walking less because I do exactly the same routes every single day. Like, it just doesn't change, apart from on the weekend, obviously. But I know, if anything, my steps on the weekend are higher because I do the same walks with Ada pretty much all the time. So Steve, once you're in your routine, you'll be fine.
Yeah, does it change for you in the winter time in comparison to summertime? Especially now with a dog? Are you more tempted to then go out way more often because it's good weather and all that kind of stuff?
Not massively. Maybe on the weekend, me and Charlotte would go out for longer walks, but because during the week, like, I'm working, training, like, I just stick to the same routes and routine. It doesn't really impact me midweek, but weekends for sure. And then only midweek, like you said, if it's like pouring outside or something. Basically, if it's weather enough that, actually, it used to be Ada wouldn't go out in any rain, but basically if I'm willing to go out in it, she'll just about go out in it. But if it's like so much that I'm like, I prefer not to, she won't even go out. So yeah, I was going to ask, actually, I basically don't do any kind of walks outside of walking her and commuting to the gym. Do you still go on your own? Are you still doing your own walks as well? I have
to, because the gym is too far away in order to actually then walk. I mean, I could walk there. It would take me probably, though, 30 minutes to 40 minutes, which is a little bit too much of the entirety of the day, unfortunately. At least in the morning time, because I always want to go to the gym, be there on time, get back to home as soon as I can so that I can have breakfast with my family as well. And because of that, I'm not actually then commuting to the gym in a traditional fashion, which I did in the past, of like walking or taking the bike, especially with a bike. The road to it is through kind of a forest, and I only have like a fixie bike, which is not really tailored for an environment like this. And that's why I have to force myself going out on regular walks. And normally I always do it like after breakfast, or kind of depends on how much I have to do throughout the day, either shortly after breakfast or like an hour, 2 hours after breakfast for a longer walk. Also, right when I wake up, I get onto the treadmill to then, because I have like a standing desk and all that kind of stuff, I listen then to check-ins, to take some notes. This is already a half an hour walk as well. So already by around 8 to 9-ish in the morning, I have already kind of 2 30 minutes walks behind me. And then throughout the day, I take another walk around midday for going out with Kayo. And this is normally also the time where I'm going out anyway, just to get a little bit of fresh air, resensitize myself for the next part of the day in terms of work. And then later on, I'm picking up the kids or going out on another walk with cardio. And now, additionally, on top of that, I have to go out on another walk with cardio then by the evening time, which is normally not something that I have done in the past. And also lately, when I have a rest day, because I'm early up I'm a little bit early awake than the others, I actually then take care of cardio, going out on the first walk with him as well. So today was a rest day for me. I woke up, did my usual walk on a treadmill, and then did some check-ins, and then I took care of cardio, had breakfast with the family, went out on another walk just by myself, because this is just my typical routine that I want to maintain as well.
Yeah, I was just thinking, I almost, if I'm going, it's so novel for me to go out on a walk without Ada, unless I'm going to the gym. I pretty much it's like, why wouldn't I take her with me almost? But it's quite freeing when I can go out on one without her. And I think probably when dieting or in prep, outside of that, I don't see the need for me needing to increase my step count. That's when I might end up needing to go on just bits of walks on my own, or even potentially just doing cardio for efficiency. That's the only thing I can think, just to get that efficient time burning. But yeah, for me, it's a bit different to you, where I know when I struggle massing, I'm like, where can I cut back on activity or expenditure? And it's I previously, Charlotte used to get home early enough to be able to take Ada out for the evening walk, but now I just absorb that she's not home early enough for that. So I have to absorb all those walks. So I'm outside of walking, people ask me sometimes how are your steps so high? I'm just when you take your dog out for 3 reasonable walks, it just adds up. It's nothing I have to try for.
And that's what I've realized now as well. Right now, Katie takes care of the kids most of the time of picking them up, which does help tremendously. But this is then the time where I have to take care of another walk with Kaio. So sometimes on days like today, for example, I have 3 additional walks that I didn't do before we had Kaio. And that adds up. But at the same time, I do enjoy it, because I very much enjoy walking. Honestly, I don't know why. Yeah. It's so funny, because Katie says that this is one thing that she loves about me, because so many of her friends complain that their husbands, they're just quite lazy on the weekends. They want to stay at home, watch some football and all that kind of stuff. When it comes then to holidays, they are barely going out on walks along the beach or something like this. And you can count on me for something like this. Count me in. Go out on a walk with me, I'm in, right? No matter what time, no matter how long, I'm there. And I just like it. I enjoy it. It calms me down. It, once again, refreshes my mind, re-energizes me for then further work, for example. And often it just, for example, here today in the morning, I love the morning times when it's still a little bit cold outside. You can tell that the weather is getting absolutely amazing here on that day. A little bit of fog around kind of the fields still. This is the environment that I'm living in. And it's just, I don't know, it gives me just something. I don't know what it is. The calmness and the weather itself is just lovely. And I do very much enjoy walks, but this is also something that has developed over the years. And I think this is once again proof that you don't have to love something at first, but the more often you do it, the more you start to appreciate it, because it becomes a habit of yours. And at some point you just do it, and then you're starting to enjoy it. And I think that we've talked about it in the past, Steve, that in the early years of our lifting careers, we didn't really enjoy it, right? Not to the extent that we do it here nowadays. And right now, I can definitely tell, hey, I'm not doing it solely for the reason of looking better. I would still continue to do it, even if that means that I wouldn't really see any kind of physical progression anymore. Because I just love the feeling that training is giving me. It gives me mental clarity. It gives me kind of a balance in life as well. And I didn't love it at first. I enjoyed it maybe, but never really loved it. And I can definitely say that now I love it.
I'm waiting for you to come in with the line of the pump it's like coming. So I'm coming in the gym, I'm coming at home, I'm coming all day. Yeah. That's why you should train AM, PM, train all day for the pump. But I agree with you. Like, again, like there were times I definitely was more so doing weightlifting because like other people were doing it. And then I was like, oh, I don't want to fall behind in my physique. I want to feel more confident. I want to look more muscular. Whereas now it's like, I'm like so far into it. I just like the process of going into the gym and then the feeling afterwards. Like even like, this is something I was going to bring up because it was a bit strange to me that it happened. And I'd just be interested to know if you have any thoughts surrounding it. But yesterday, after my leg session, like I came back and I just like laid on the sofa for like 10 minutes after my session because I was like, I felt sick. I was like, you obviously see people like Mike Israel and he's sick like within his leg training sessions relatively frequently. And I've never been sick due to any sort of physical activity. But I was like, I was like, man, I'm actually close. If I tried to push through this, I feel like I would potentially like vomit something up. I'm like, I don't really know why. And then I just like laid on the couch. Whereas today is like an upper body session, still like pretty long and hard, and I feel great after it. It's just like legs completely hit you differently. And that leg session, I do a Bulgarian split squat now. And I decided for some reason, I know why I did it, because I thought I might benefit from it. I was like trying to test the waters. I did another set on it where I wasn't really sure if I was going to. And then I was like, man, you're thinking about it enough. Let's just fuck it. Let's just try and see what happens. And it might have set me over the edge for that session a little bit where I was just like nauseous after it, like fuck.
But you're having something to eat before the workouts, right?
Yeah, I eat. Breakfast is like, what time do I have that roughly? Like 8:30. Between 8 and 9 is when I have breakfast. And then I train normally it's like 10:30, 11 is normally when I get into the gym. So yeah, relatively soon to it. But I was feeling fine through the session until basically I did that third set. And then I was like, okay, that put me over the edge of like, now I feel a bit like nauseous.
I wonder if someone like Mike, for example, are those people who feel very much nauseous after a session or in between or in a session, they would still feel that way if the last meal was, or maybe they are going into the gym with only a whey shake and a coffee,
I think he trains first thing.
Oh, really?
I think he just has an intra and he trains first thing for an AM session.
How then is there still something in his digestive tract?
I don't know what's coming out.
That can come out, you know?
It's just bile. But yeah, that just wasn't fun. But yeah, I'm kind of, I don't know, every now and then it's nice. I'm probably going to learn this, but just like testing your limits on how much you can do and get through. Like I always enjoy, like that's again coming back to like enjoying it. Like that was not a fun feeling for me, like feeling nauseous, feeling trash, really tired. But like I like knowing that that's bringing something, when it's doing something for me. And it's something about surviving that as well, where it's like most people wouldn't push themselves to the point of feeling like nauseous or that fatigued. Yeah, it's quite nice like doing that.
And this is why I also can understand why some people take pride in their lifts and also in how hard, in quotation marks, they can push themselves. Because on average, in comparison to the average gym goer, you're probably capable of pushing very, very hard. I'm still skeptical that those people who claim to always train to failure do this. Maybe it's their perceived failure, but not really true actual muscular failure all the time. But I can definitely see why they are then taking pride or being proud of those kind of accomplishments, because I do get the same feeling as well, if I have to admit and be honest about it, because I'm going to the gym and I feel good about my training and walking around there because I see my training and the training years of my physique being reflected there. And I see how hard I can push myself in comparison to the other people around me. And the physique is kind of a representation of the years that you've put towards building that physique. And that is, I know how vain it sounds, but it's just something that I want to, of course, also be honest about, that this gives me kind of pride when going to the gym. And that makes me in return also feel good.
Yeah. I didn't have that until, I don't know, like 2020, basically. After about a decade of lifting is when I started to have actual pride in my physique, where I'm like, now people can look at what I'm doing in the gym, look at my physique and be like, hey, maybe there's something to what he's doing. Whereas in the past, I always felt like people would look at what I'm doing, look at my physique and be like, why would I train like that to look like that? Obviously, there's terrible like causation, correlation type of thing. But now I'm like,
absolutely.
Like I'm like, this is all, like, especially legs, man. The amount of times like I see people training legs in the gym and I'm just like, yeah, probably a 5, 6, 10 reps left in you, and you should have gone deeper. You should have used less weight, like all the time.
Exactly. That's why, once again, I can very much understand why people are so confident even in what they are doing, especially the genetically blessed ones, that they are so confidently speaking about their methodologies, about they know what they are talking about because, hey, look at my physique and so. That's why they are so kind of speaking in ultimates when it comes to those kind of approaches. Because the proof is in the pudding, right? But most of the time, of course, it's just a fallacy that they are falling into. But it's like you said, Steve, after a decade of training, being then able, especially for those who really needed to work hard for it to make it happen, I think it is then kind of a proof of what it is that you've been doing up to this point, that it has worked out, and kind of, how should I put it? It's kind of, you can be proud of your accomplishments because so many people would have stopped doing it by that time or a little bit earlier because they haven't really seen the results that they would like to. And I mean, we've seen it so often already as coaches. I know so many people who came to us in their early stages of their lifting career, maybe 1 to 2 years, up to 5 years of lifting experience. And it's even something that we've talked about just, I don't know, a couple of episodes ago. And then they are stopping because they didn't really see the results that they would like to. They probably also need to invest more time that they are willing to. And then they just realize, okay, this isn't for me. I'm not bought in enough to do what's necessary in order to see the results that I would like to. And that's why I just decide to do something else. Yeah,
and I think you also said it when we talked about this before, like, that's fair enough. Like, you are quite literally making a decision based off like cost versus benefit.
Yeah.
But I think some people, if they could see, actually, I've heard someone talk about this. It might have been Dave McConey, where he was like, if I could see that in a year's time or something, I would have gained a pound more muscle if I committed to a certain program, I would do it. But without seeing that, without knowing that, it's hard to commit to something. Whereas I'm so past trying to even worry about, am I gaining a pound of muscle, 2 pounds of muscle, whatever it is. Like, I know it's slow, but I'm committing to this thing because I just fucking love it. And whatever it is that's possible here, I'm in. I'm in. I'm too far in already. I'm committed to it. So yeah, I think some people need that kind of carrot in front of them. They need to know, like, hey, Pascal, I'm going to gain 5 pounds of muscle if I commit to what you tell me, right? And you're like, maybe. I can't tell you because like there's just too many variables to really say. What I can tell you is if you commit to that, you've given your best shot at gaining that 5 pounds or whatever is available to you. But some people, that's not enough for them, and they're like, that's too uncertain. But that's kind of life, you know?
Totally. And I think that's absolutely all right if you then make the decision that it's not for you. I'm the same as you, Steve, because I know what it sounds like to the vast majority of people if I say that I don't really care. Because I, of course, want to see progress. I wouldn't want to invest that much time and effort if nothing really changes. But I also know that if I do something, that something is happening. It's just kind of also physiology and how we adapt and all that kind of stuff. If I cross a certain threshold, I just know that something is happening. How much is happening? We'll see. Doesn't really matter, but I know that something is happening, you know? And that is, for me personally, enough to satisfy me. And I think that for other people, it may not be enough. They need then kind of a little bit more of a clarification, confirmation, certainty in order to then stick with something. And this is, I think, the problem with so many things in life. If you don't have conviction about a certain outcome, that it will happen no matter how long it will take you, then often you won't really stick with it. And it's also something that you can common or very often see in investments. When you don't have a conviction that a certain investment will pay off in the future, whether it is now a year from now or 10 years from now, as long as it gives you the returns that you would like to and are hoping for, and based on your analysis or calculations is giving you that return, you're not having conviction, and then it's way more likely that you are stopping or dropping out of it. And I think that this is the case with so many things in life. If you're not having any kind of conviction about certain things, you will probably not stick with it. Whether it's your career, whether it's your relationship, whether it's your investment, training, whatever it is.
Yeah, it's almost to the point of like, you have to believe in the process, because if you have doubts in it, and I think this has actually been, I think I've heard Greg Nuckols talk about this, where you could have people doing the same program, but one group has a coach. And so by having that coach, the people believe in that program more, they have more conviction, maybe they do it to a higher degree than the other people, and they get better results. Yeah. So like, that's always something I want clients to come is be like, what we're doing together is the best possible program for you in your given situation. You're going to get the best results you possibly could hope for. And that buy-in is important to the process, I think.
Yeah. Wasn't it also a study about kind of, what was it again? If someone were to tell you that your genetics were good, you were actually then performing better as well. Because you had probably more conviction about that the outcomes were or will be impressive and will be to your satisfaction. Yeah. And if someone were to tell you that you have subpar genetics, you would more than likely just stop it all along.
And there was also a study on like just steroid placebo people were given. And then they saw like dramatically better results. Yeah. And then the upsetting part of that is, I'm pretty sure when they were told it was placebo, they lost the gains.
Yeah. I think that they were getting
such a mind fuck.
I think it was about getting some D-bol pills, and it was, of course, obviously placebo pills. And they gained kind of, 10 or 15 kilograms on their bench press rep maxes or something like this. Crazy. And they all of a sudden dropped it back down again after they've been told there was just like placebo.
And this is actually, it's a good point, because the people who just have like undenying belief in what they're doing is the best thing, often like they're ignorant to some holes within that, but that belief in what they're doing is so important. Whereas we work with people quite often, and people who listen to this podcast are probably a little bit more analytical, maybe paralysis by analysis. They're always questioning, they're always doubting themselves. And I can't help but think that's, after everything we've spoken about here, that's also harming themselves. Well, 100%. They just need to give like effort to that.
100%. And that's why you see it in professional sports, even, that so many great athletes, they have their own psychologist, or at least a team psychologist, where they are then sitting in there and then kind of positive self-talk, repetitive things that put them into the right mindset right before maybe an important game or so, because they have to believe. I even made a post about it at some point where I then quoted kind of Indiana Jones, where he was supposed to cross the invisible path. And his father, Sean Connery, was lying there and said like, boy, you have to believe. You have to believe. And he was just like taking one step forward, and he couldn't see the bridge, but he believed. And then all of a sudden he was stepping onto the bridge, right? And that's kind of the same thing there as well. If you don't believe, you would probably then fall down and, fall indefinitely,
Yeah. This discussion always makes me think of Naruto. That's believe it. And yeah, I mean, yeah, I just think there's a lot to that. And I think, some of our listeners can do with, like, again, it just comes down to that, what a lot of people talk about: think less, do more. And obviously there's a sweet spot there where you don't want to think so little that you're just doing dumb shit. But think enough, be pretty sure on what you're doing, invest. I think that's also why coaching works so well, because so many people doubt themselves, and then you just give them a program and then they're like, cool, I'm committing, and they go.
Yeah. Also because they could always then blame someone else if they are failing and making some mistakes and not seeing the results that they would like to. And sometimes people need that. They need someone else to blame if they are then fading. And that's all right sometimes. Right? So, yeah. Anyway, on that note, let's take a short break talking about coaching and getting a coach, and then we are back in a couple of seconds.
Do you not see the progress you would like? Are you sick of writing your own programs? Or perhaps you need some accountability in order to stick with a plan? Then it's time to start working with us. We at Revive Stronger offer a truly personalized coaching service. You'll get more than just an email with some macros or random cookie cutter program. With Revive Stronger, you will be the center of our attention. You will receive your own fully individualized training protocol alongside a customized nutritional strategy. We created the coaching around your needs, wants, personal preferences, and your own unique lifestyle. Every single week, we delve into your program in order to make appropriate adjustments so that we get the most out of your time and the best possible outcome. We help both female and male athletes to seriously change their body composition by adding more muscle mass and decreasing fat tissue. No matter if you're a competitive bodybuilder or just want to look better, if you need help with your progress and taking your physique to the next level, our coaching is for you. It's time to make a change. Sign up today and let's revive stronger.
Back at it, and I really do hope that you paused the video in the meanwhile, jumped over to Revive Stronger and signed up for coaching as well.
You always do such a good job of remembering, because I would completely forget to say.
It's just because I have the audio program running here, and I can always see like at around 30 minutes I need to actually then get a quick reminder over here. Steve, I had a question of Mitchell, I think. He's from Australia, and he was sending over a voice message, and I was actually then promising him last time already to ask you that question. It was a great question, because he asked that he has seen that you are not pausing most of the lifts anymore, as you may have done in the past. And the question marks pop up around your head, I can see. And whether you have seen benefits to it in comparison to pausing the lifts more often in terms of maybe strength progression, hypertrophically speaking, and have you seen any kind of benefits to it? And why did you decide to actually take it down that route? Even though that you may seem as if you haven't changed anything about it.
Yeah. That's what I'm thinking. I'm like, when is this, like, what are we comparing here? Because I feel like
maybe
I don't take...
Maybe I can help out on something, for example, like the lower body movements, such as the leg press and also Smith machine squats. I can't really remember how you did it in the past, but now you are sometimes accelerating still, but not in an uncontrolled fashion, which is something that I always advise against when I take a look at decline form videos, for example, that they are accelerating uncontrollably in order to gain more momentum. But you do it in a controlled fashion so that you have an easier time maybe getting out of the sticking point or something like this.
Yeah, it's fun. It's like you said, I don't feel like I've changed my approach there. So I would need to look back at video footage or like have that in front of me to see, actually, I have not continued to pause when I'm intending to. I'm not taking long intentional pauses. They are more so just like you said, I'm taking that moment just to pause for like almost half a second to make sure I don't use the stretch reflex and just bounce. On the length and partial work, I will say I'm not pausing those. I don't know what that would feel like, and I've only just started doing length and partial work I tried it on leg press and Smith squats, and it was very interesting, but I haven't tried. Those are just continuous, whereas, when I do the Smith squat, when I do the leg press, I am still coming down, split second pause, back up. So, I'm not pausing for longer, and I just see it as a variation with these sort of things. I can't necessarily say is one superior to the other. I think some people might make the argument that, and I have made this argument myself, and I don't know how much I stand by it, where pausing in the stretch position could be inherently more hypertrophic. And I'm like, but that's like isometric in the stretch position. I don't know if that's more hypertrophic than just controlling through that range of motion. So I just view it as really variation. And I'm not intentionally having changed like any of that pausing for the last 6 months. So I don't know if he's seen something I haven't seen, or there was a lift where I changed it on. But I don't have much more to say.
Maybe this is just me speculating here. On some lifts, a pause can seem longer than the other pauses, for example. And also, to the outside viewer, a pause may seem like a proper pause, whereas something else doesn't. just to give you an example, for example, the Smith machine squats, I feel like I'm pausing, but when I look back at my video, it never really looks like a pause. But I can tell internally that I'm not using the momentum. I know what it sounds like. This sounds like cope, or like justifying that, hey, my pause is that short that he can't really detect it. But that's what it really is. I'm going into the bottom in a controlled fashion. I'm pausing there in the reversal kind of position very, very shortly in order to not bounce into the connected tissue wise, probably hardest position. And then I'm coming out. And the same then applies though for something like benches, for example. I'm there intentionally coming down and pausing a little bit longer to really try to keep my chest puffed up and also high. And this is only for me at least possible if I really take things slowly, and especially when I'm getting closer to the chest so that my chest stays high. Because if I rush things there, I may even pause it on my chest, but my chest is sinking in. Mm-hmm. So maybe to the outside viewer, it may seem as if one pause is longer and more controlled than the other, but it's also something that, once again, I know what it sounds like, right? It sounds like a justification, but internally you can then tell that you've actually already paused.
I know it's not, because I know exactly what you're talking about, and I imagine a lot of the listeners will as well, where it's like, you've made enough of a change where, and it's similar to lifting under control. There's so many variables, like even on a Smith machine, one could have assistance or more resistance. My one is very lubricated, so like it's almost like a free bar coming down. Mm-hmm. So if I go really slow, like that just feels like I'm like very much in my core, and I'm feeling it through my back and everything. So I have to go a bit faster. And again, it sounds like cope when you don't know, but visually it looks faster than maybe someone else, but I'm giving as much control and enough internal control where I'm like, I know I'm in control of that lift. And it's similar to you where, my pauses, I'm not intentionally trying to pause like seconds. I'm just trying to pause enough to have that bottom portion not bouncing out of it and just like come down, pause, back up. And I'm with you in terms of it can feel different on different lifts or even different muscle groups, even between different people. Some people might need a longer pause versus other people. And it may even change over time. Like you might just find pauses just feel a bit meh at the moment. Let's try just like going touch and go almost with no bounce. And that might work nicely for you. So I agree with you on that.
Yeah. On another note, it's something that we've discussed, I think 2 episodes ago, that for me personally, there are lifts that I have to intentionally take much, much slower in order to have a better mind-muscle connection and control than other movements, where I have to take things much, much faster, counterintuitively. So for example, the pack deck, I need to take slow. Even on the concentric, I need to take things slowly, because if I try to be explosive on that movement, I have the feeling that it just more so goes into my shoulder joints. If I take things very, very slowly, even on the concentric, I have the feeling that I have a much, much better control and really push through my packs, even though that I could move faster. So one thing more to consider, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think when you're more advanced, like us, like training over a decade, these are things you can feel, where you almost, and it's actually something I spoke about with Kasim, where a lot of high-level bodybuilders are almost intuitively like changing resistance profiles to their strength profile or whatever to make it better, where they are maybe using a bit of momentum out of the bottom on motions where it's hard at that portion, or hard at the top, harder in the top portion, in the short position. So they're driving with momentum. It's like, like they're just in tune with their body a little bit better. Whereas when you're a bit more novice, like you can't necessarily feel these things out. And so probably stricter technique in that sense, a bit more control, a bit slower, just generally is a wise move. But I think there is a bit of I still think there's a bit of a push where slower's deemed better. Like the slower you lift, or especially on the eccentric, the better. It's like, that's not evidence-based. Like there's a wide range of seconds that you can lift within that is like causing the same amount of hypertrophy. And then I think it's individualized, like we just explained to the person in the lift, where it's like, what's giving you maybe the better SFR?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, unfortunately, the lifting community and crowd is always so dogmatic and likes to overthink things. And I think that many people assume that we may fall into that camp as well. And that's totally fine if you think that we are overthinking things. But I think if you are taking a look at a different, I don't know, craftsmanship or artists, yes, certainly there are some theories that you can apply in order to create something, like a painting, for example, but you don't have to stick with it in order to create something unique or amazing, right? And you have to figure out like how to hold the, I don't know, the brush for yourself in order to get the results that you would like to. And while it may seem then acceptable in other fields, apparently to me at least, it seems as if it's kind of poo-pooed on if you are trying to really individualize it. Because other people are lecturing you of like, this is not the way how to do a leg extension. All right, thank you very much for telling me what I feel. And this is something that we've discussed several times already. Let me just try for myself to figure out what feels good and what doesn't. And you don't really know my background entirely. I even said to Katie the other day, I really slowly feel getting older in my joints and connective tissues.
No.
Especially on the lower body. There has been a very long time where the lower body movements simply don't feel great anymore to me, unfortunately. But it is what it is, right? And if I then were to make some modifications around my leg programs or so, someone else were to tell me like, this is not the way how to squat, maybe there's a specific reason for why I'm doing this.
Yeah.
Right? And often there is, whether it is something like you feel it better, you have better mind-muscle connection, you need to work around it because of some kind of niggling aches, pains, injuries, whatever it is, right? I think that especially the people who have been doing this for a long time, they most of the time know why they are doing something, or they are just like complete idiots and they've always trained that way and they don't really want to change something, because there's this camp as well, of course, right? Especially when you go to those, I know places here in Berlin, for example, like those hardcore old school bodybuilding gyms where it's kind of lots of idiotic things, but also probably things that work out for the vast majority of people as well, you know, but they are so stuck in their ways because the generation before that generation was telling them how to do things, and they were always kind of like, but they told me, and who are you now to come here and tell me otherwise, right? But know this, I think that before thinking that things have to be textbook-like, the more you have experience in that field, or the more experience I have in that field, the more I came to realize that everyone is kind of unique. And while we are all human beings, there may be slight kind of variations and differentiations that are enough for us to then do things differently.
I think that's really well said. And if I was to pull apart what I think the take home and what I don't see people doing enough is they too often look at people in the industry and they take specifics of what they're doing with their training, whether it be a little like technique, like nuanced thing they're doing, or something very specific with their nutrition, and they're taking those specifics, they're not taking principles. Like, you taking principles is helpful, then you can apply those to yourself and individualize it, but taking really specific things, I don't know what it could be, like you said, the way that you're approaching a certain lift, and it's like they haven't asked you why you're doing it like that, they're just like, oh, this person's doing it like that, they know what they're doing, so I should absolutely be doing it like that. Or they're eating this certain way, that's clearly the best way to do it. Whereas actually, like, it's calories, macros, micros, which they should be focusing on, not the specifics. Or they, like, I know I've done it before. I remember a while back, Mike Israetel was like, leg extensions, he just doesn't really get on with them. He didn't think they were a great hypertrophic tool. And I was like, maybe I don't need to do many leg extensions. And now I do quite a lot of leg extensions because they're freaking great for me. Yeah. And so I hate myself sometimes for it, where I take specifics when I shouldn't be taking specifics. I should be taking principles and applying them to myself.
Another example on you, Steve, is, for example, ab training. So many people, even someone like Jared, says that he doesn't do any kind of ab training. All right. Doesn't mean that you shouldn't do any kind of ab training. Take a look at Jared's abs, for example, right? I mean,
fuck that guy.
And you or me, myself, right? We should probably do some ab training in order to actually have some better abs. That's for sure.
It's like, and like with me, like biceps, like they're a joke. Like, it's just a joke. Don't listen. Like, don't look at what I'm doing for my biceps and apply that if you want to grow your biceps. Yeah. I might educate you on how I think biceps should be trained. That's different, but I wouldn't want someone to copy my program. Again, that's like the whole copying programs, and that's where people get burnt. It's great as a like starting point, but really you need to individualize. And that's the worst thing people could probably do, is because the most specific programs are probably those who are more advanced, but those are the ones people want to look like. So then they can copy these advanced bodybuilders programs, and they're the most specific programs because that bodybuilder's got to a point where they need something ultra specific for them to keep growing.
I want to summarize this a little bit to make sense of the thing, so that people have somewhat of a takeaway, so that it's not just like us complaining about other people complaining. So I think what's important is, first and foremost, just lift, right, for several years, because this is the way that you learn. You have to get actually your feet wet in order then to realize what may work or what doesn't. Just sitting on any kind of forum or any kind of, I don't know, chat doesn't really help you. You may theorize what may be better, but as long as you're not getting out there and trying things for yourself, you will never figure it out. At the same time is once again your best partner here, because only with time and practice you will be able to tell what is working and what isn't. Because in my first years of lifting, I didn't even know what mind muscle connection is, what pumps truly feel like. I thought that I knew, but looking back in hindsight, I had no idea. And this is also with each and every kind of motor pattern skill that we are doing in life, no matter what it is. It takes time and practice of repeating the same movement over and over again to get efficient at it, to recruit motor units, and by that, of course, also recruit more muscle fibers in order to feel something. And first then, after years, you will be able to tell what's working and what isn't. And one more takeaway is, don't just justify certain approaches, certain behaviors, certain lifts because you've seen it somewhere, or you are telling yourself that this is what I have to do. I think there's kind of a nuanced approach here as well. It's like Steve said, don't just take everything that other people are saying for the truth, but at the same time, don't just swing the other way as well, where you're just justifying each and every shit that you're doing with, it's individual to me, it works for me, right? The truth is probably somewhere in the middle, as always.
Yeah, I think it's trying to like that is cope, where you're like, if you just are like psychologically attached to a certain lift, like, and that might even be the best way for you to lift if you are that psychologically attached to it, because maybe you'll give more to it. Yeah. But that's what I always try and do with my training. I know you're the same way, Pascal, where I detach myself from the methods. It's just a case of, I want to make sure that I'm doing the best thing I can do to provide the best results. If that means leaving reps in reserve, I leave reps in reserve. If it means not, I won't. If it means modifying like range of motion potentially, I will try that to try and see whatever Steve, I can do.
Would you now honestly say that you've been able to do something like this in your early stages of your lifting career? Probably not, right? Because you are so anxious and afraid of making mistakes and also wasting time, when in reality it's a freaking stupid thought to have, because everything that we are doing takes time to actually, that we are getting better at something, and it's all right and absolutely normal to make mistakes. And wasting time is never something, because once again, if you're crossing a certain threshold of intensity, you're still probably inducing a proper enough hypertrophic stimulus, and also in that you are doing something and making mistakes, you are learning what not to do maybe in the future. So it's inherently even beneficial in your entire journey.
Yeah, and I think we've already talked about coaching, but coaching should be like a walkthrough guide to a console game, where you can go at it, you can do your own journey, and you can probably make lots of mistakes, and it takes you freaking ages to complete the game if you can complete it. Whereas having a coach on your side who's educated, knows what they're doing, they can help you through this journey, not miss the hidden packages, and allow you to beat the final boss and complete that journey a little bit more efficiently and effectively, because they will stop you, well, like a coach should stop you from going down a path that's unproductive, and also help you navigate down paths that could be productive that you might otherwise have not traveled down, because you just were too focused on other things that maybe weren't important.
I think your analogy of a walkthrough guide of a video game is so appropriate, honestly, because in those walkthrough guides are sometimes even hidden things that you wouldn't have noticed or figured out by yourself. Like, where is the secret weapon if you're going down that hole here and, I don't know, twist and turn that button.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden, a door is opening for the secret weapon that is destroying every kind of foe in the game, right? Or villain in the game, I mean. And things like these, it's not cheating because it's not a cheat code. It's just a walkthrough guide. You can either stick with it or you don't. Cheating is sumo deadlifts and steroids. No, I'm just kidding.
Cheating is those cheat codes. We're not talking about cheat codes. We're not those coaches. We don't have those in our disposal. So
no.
Anything else?
I think we're coming up on time, Steve.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything else to particularly talk about on that specific
That's
topic.
all right.
No. I think we did a good job of. I think if we were to talk about more, I'd end up going down a rabbit hole of like video games now. Talking about what was it in? Did you ever play Grand Theft Auto?
Yeah.
Was it pigeons you had to go and like shoot?
I don't know what
in one of them. I remember one of them was like
GTA
pigeons.
3 maybe, because that was kind of New York City, wasn't it? And then
I think it was Vice City was the one I'm thinking of. That was the one I played the most, and I loved the aesthetic, the music, everything.
But Vice City was 3, wasn't it?
Oh, was it? No, I don't know if it was that. Yeah, I don't.
San Andreas was the 4th, I think, which was on kind of Miami style, which was also pretty great. And then afterwards, I don't even recall.
I just think one of them was pigeons that you had to shoot.
I'm already that old that I was playing GTA 1 and 2 on PlayStation back in the days. That's how old I am.
I had a PlayStation, but I never played those games. I don't know if I wasn't allowed, because I shouldn't have even been playing like GTA Vice City when I was, because I was like 14 or something, and it was for 18-year-olds, and you're like picking up hookers, whatever, shooting people, running them over.
I even remember in GTA 2, for example, there were the Yakuza cars with a big Y on the top of the car. And these were black cars. I don't know why I do remember these kind of shitty things. Can't there be space up in my head for more useful things than this?
Yeah, it's like me with Pokemon. Like, I can remember a lot of the first 151, is it?
Yeah. Yeah, 151 with Mew, right? Yeah, exactly.
Why the fuck?
Yeah, exactly.
Why does this hold such a stronghold on me? I think I remember at one point I could literally take you from 1 to 151 in order.
Yeah, which is, of course, because they were always wrapping the Pokemons from 1 to... Like the outro of Pokemon itself. There was this one song where then you wrapped the all of the Pokemons up to 150.
I don't think I listened to that.
Yeah.
I need to check it out. Oh dear. But Pokemon, Ash is now gone, isn't he? He's deceased.
Yeah.
He's left.
He's deceased.
I don't know if he died.
Is he dead or what? After becoming a champion.
Yeah, I don't know. I think he left the game. I don't know. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, you just told me like the other day that he finally became a champion, where I just joked about like after 25 years finally making it. Like that is conviction. We've talked about conviction here in this episode. Man, Ash tried for 25 years to become the greatest Pokemon trainer of the world, and he stuck with it. Probably independent of what his people around him said, what his mom said, what Dr. What was his name again? Dr.
Oak.
Professor Oak, exactly. Professor Oak said, right?
Gary.
Independent.
Fuck Gary,
fuck him, man. Especially Gary, right? Always gave him shit for what Ash was trying to accomplish. Always being better and superior and all that kind of stuff, right? But he made it after 25 years. If there's one lesson out there, take a look at Ash. This is conviction right there. This is the spirit that you need to apply when it comes to your training and nutrition. That's it.
And to circle back to the beginning of the podcast, here, Pikachu, like our dog, you need a best friend who can go on that journey with you. Yeah. On that note, I think it's time to end the show. The moral of the story is catch 'em all. Cheers, Believe,
guys.
I want to be the very best.
Yeah, exactly. Cheers.
Cheers, guys.
Losing weight fast while maintaining muscle mass. Sounds too good to be true, doesn't it? It isn't though. It's reality and we know how to do it. And we will help you achieve this. The Minicut Movement is an 8-week fat loss program to make you lose a huge chunk of fat while maintaining muscle mass at the same time. We will support you from the beginning to the end so that you see the results you would like to and come out of it much stronger. You'll receive a fully automated spreadsheet that is based on your nutritional needs. You can choose between 6 different male and female training templates. Over 30 videos will guide you through each and every single step of the Minicut so that you're getting the most out of your journey and that you always know what to do. But the best thing is that you can start whenever you want. The Minicut Movement is open 24/7. So if you want to learn more or you're ready to sign up, hit the link in the description below. So let's revive stronger together.